Wappinger Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order. Could I have a roll call, please, B?
Mr. Delacroix?
Here.
Mr. Lorenzini?
Here.
Mr. Shaw?
Here.
Mr. Barr?
Here.
Mr. Bellotti?
Here. All right, first order of business tonight is acceptance of the minutes from April 12th, 2022. Has everybody had a chance to review?
Yes.
Any changes or modifications?
No.
No? Could I have a motion then, please, to accept the minutes as written?
Motion to accept the minutes as
Could I
written.
have a second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, so moved. All right, next order of business tonight. I'd like to make a request, Mr. Stenger, if you would. The other applicants, probably the time that they need is going to be a lot shorter than yours. Would you mind if we did those first? That'd be wonderful, thank you. Okay, so we're going to jump to the next item on the agenda. It's public hearing. Appeal number 227750, area variance. Dorothy Brucey seeking an area variance section 24037 of district regulations in an R40 zoning district where 25 feet to the side right yard property line is required. The applicant can provide 15 feet for the construction of a 29-foot by 17-foot deck, thus requesting a variance of 10 feet. The property is located at 64 Gold Road and is identified as tax grid number 6358-03001427 in the town of Wappinger. May I have a motion, please, to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Is anybody here to speak on behalf of this application? You know the drill, right? For the record, just state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Doris Brucey, 64 Gold Road, Wappinger Falls, New York.
Okay, and just for the benefit of the board and anybody who else might be listening in, just a quick description of what you need and why you need it.
I need a variance to put my porch back on. I only have 15 feet on the one side, and I guess I needed 25. When we build our house, our neighbors had built part of their house on our lot, so we had to shift everything over so we could build our house.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Now, we were all out there. We were out, the four of us were there on Saturday. I believe, David, you were there today or yesterday?
Yeah, this morning.
This morning?
Yeah.
Got it. And took a good look around. You can see what's going on there. Now, this is the footprint of the deck isn't actually changing, correct? It's not getting any larger or bigger.
No.
It's just you're rebuilding it because it got damaged.
Right.
And yeah, you could see that you might have a tough time getting down off of that one then. But yeah, so it's pretty straightforward. If you guys have any additional questions.
No,
I
I
think we're good. All right, so anybody in the audience here to speak on or against this variance? Okay, all right, so I can have a motion, please, to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So moved. All right, now, can I have a motion then to grant or deny the applicant the variance?
I'll make a motion to grant the variance. It's a unique condition where you had to shift your house over. The deck is no closer to the property line than the current house, and it's been existing in that exact same configuration for many years. The benefit can be achieved by no other means. It is not an undesirable change to the neighborhood. The request is verging on substantial, but I think there are reasons for it. There is no adverse environmental effects. The difficulty is self-created.
All right, then. A motion, so we have a motion.
Second the
We
motion.
have a second. All right, so roll call, please, B.
Mr. Delacroix?
Yes.
Mr. Lorenzini?
Yes.
Mr. Shaw?
Yes.
Mr. Barr?
Yes?
Mr. Bellotti?
Yes. Okay, so your variance has been granted.
Thank you.
So you could go. I don't know if B has any other information for you. Okay, so you're all set. Thank you. Have a good night. All right, next on the agenda, it's appeal number 227751, area variance. Charles and Ellen Siebel seeking an area variance section 24037 of district regulations in an in R20/40 zoning district, where 50 feet to the rear yard property line is required. The applicant can provide 36 feet for the installation of a 21-foot above-ground pool, thus requesting a 14-foot variance where 25 feet to the side left yard property line is required. The applicant can provide 20 feet for the installation of a 21-foot round above-ground pool, thus requesting a variance of 5 feet. The applicant is located at 5 Fowler House Road and is identified as tax grid number 6157-04-562-324 in the town of Wappinger. Can I have a motion, please, to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public.
Can I have a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, is anybody here to speak on behalf of this application? There we go. Just for the record, name and address?
Ellen Siebel, 5 Fowler House Road, Wappingers Falls, New York, 12590.
Gotcha.
And Charles.
In Charles. So we just for a brief, again, for the public's knowledge and the board, just a brief description of what you need and why you need it.
We're seeking a variance. We don't have 50 feet available. We can provide 36 feet. We can push it to possibly 40 feet. We moved our markers around a little bit. We can provide 20 feet. We can't provide the 25 feet. Unfortunately, we cannot have the pool in this space because of the septic. So we're very limited as to where the pool can be placed in the backyard.
Yeah, again, we were all out there on Saturday, and David was there as well today. Pretty much see what you're going on there. You're pretty confined as to what you can do with the pool, right? Pretty tight backyard, and you got your encumbrances. You have your septic and your well that you need to deal with. I mean, going there and taking a look, again, another pretty straightforward. You have the, whatchamacallit, your rear property line, bordering your rear property line is the tire business, right? And so your neighbor's got some stuff going on over there too. Fowler House is a busy street these days.
Yeah.
Guys, we were out there, looking around. I think we got a pretty good idea and sense of what's going on there. I really don't have any other additional questions or concerns unless anybody else does.
I think the location makes sense, and, the tire yard has a very large fence up, which I think would block any views at the rear.
Yeah. Yeah, I think anybody in the audience have anything to speak about it for or against this application? No? Okay. So then let's make a motion then to close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Second?
Seconded.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. All right, can I have a motion then, please, to grant or deny the applicant the variance?
I make a motion to grant. The requested variance will not produce an undesirable change in the character of the neighborhood. There's no substantial detriment will be created to nearby properties. There is no other feasible method due to the septic and where they want to put it, so it's got to pretty much go wherever they want. The requested area variance is not substantial. The proposed variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood district. The alleged difficulty is self-created, but I still believe that we should grant this variance.
Okay, can I have a second, please?
Seconded.
All right, can I have a roll call, please, B?
Yes.
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 And Pete, just for the record,
Yes.
this is for both variances, side and
Oh,
rear.
yes, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, for the
Back
record,
inside.
we voted then on both variances tonight, so you're good to go.
Great, thank
Okay?
you.
Thank you.
Come tomorrow.
All righty. Next item on tonight's agenda, appeal number 227749, area variance, Gerard and Patricia Heistra, seeking an area variance, section 24037 of district regulations in an R40 zoning district, where 25 feet to the rear yard property line is required. The applicant can provide 18 feet for the construction of a 30-foot by 17-foot deck, thus requesting a variance of 7 feet. The property is located at 19 Fieldstone Boulevard and is identified as tax grid number 6257-10-277-709 in the town of Wappinger. Could I have a motion, please, to open the public hearing?
Motion to open public hearing?
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay. So for the record, please state your name and address.
Gerard Heitstra, 19 Fieldstone Boulevard, Wappinger.
For anybody who's listening in, and for the benefit of the board, again, just a quick description of what you need and why you need it.
The deck presently right now is practically falling apart. It's on a slope. Backyard is practically, sometimes when it rains, after a while, it'll just become a pond. So the deck is literally sinking into the ground and going down. So the staircase fell apart. I put it together in January, and I had a contractor come out. So I want to replace the deck and the pylons and widen it to the length of the house and extend it out
Got
to
it.
get more usage out of it.
Got it. So we were there on Saturday. We met with you, and there was a little confusion as to what exactly we were doing there. But I think we got it straight now, right?
Yes, sir.
So the deck is going to be basically 30 feet wide and be 17 feet out.
Correct.
So you'll be coming from the existing home, you'll be coming out about 17 feet.
Yes.
And we made that modification now on, everybody got the revised application, right?
Yes.
And the revised application had the right numbers. Last time you were here, we were kind of going back and forth with the numbers
Yes,
a little bit. You know, you had the stakes in the ground, but we figured out what was going there, we rolled it out, so we had a very good sense of what you're doing and why you're doing it. I don't have any other additional questions unless you guys do. Go ahead, Tom.
Shah,
Go ahead.
Shalish, do you want to go before me, or?
No, that's okay.
Okay, I want to just ask you what we talked about the stairs, and did you have a chance to?
I talked to the contractor,
Yeah.
and he said it's best that we just put it, inset it, so it'll be the same amount, 17 feet.
Okay,
That's
so there'll be nothing outside of that? Okay, good.
No, I was thinking about it, but it doesn't matter.
So
Okay.
so
Yeah,
for
that's
clarification, then, the stairs will be inset of the deck. It
Right.
won't
Correct.
be, they won't protrude past the front of the deck.
No.
You got that,
Yeah.
right?
Same question I had.
That same question?
Yes.
Imagine that. But do you guys, any other questions?
I don't have any other questions.
Just a comment, you know, I think that conservation district behind the house does help you. You know, it kind of creates an additional buffer between your property and the property behind. You know, it makes your property feel larger. Deeper, in a good way that I think is beneficial to approving this.
Yeah, agreed. I think that kind of provides some screening as well. Okay, anybody in the audience have any comments or questions regarding this application? Okay, can I have a motion then, please, to close the public hearing?
Motion to close public hearing?
Second,
Second?
all in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Can I have a motion to grant or deny the applicant the variance?
I'll make a motion that we grant the variance. The requested variance will not produce an undesirable name change in the neighborhood. The detriment, there will be no detriment to the nearby properties. There is no other feasible means for you to pursue or achieve the benefit you seek other than the requested variance. The requested variance is not substantial. The proposed variance will not have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or the district, and the alleged difficulty is self-created, and therefore it is determined by me that we grant the variance.
Okay, can I have a
Second.
second, please?
I'll second.
Second.
Roll call, please, B.
Yes.
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 Yes. Okay, so your variance has been granted.
Thank you.
You're free to go. Have a good night. All right, next item on the agenda, discussion, appeal number 227752, area variance. Philip Abate, seeking an area variance, section 24037 of district regulations in an R40 zoning district. where 25 feet to the side yard right property line is required, the applicant can provide 12-foot 10 inches for the legalization of an existing 10-foot by 20-foot shed, thus requesting a variance of 12-foot 9 inches. The property is located at 6 Hackensack Heights Road and is identified as tax grid number 625904556234 in the town of Wappingers. Is Philip in the audience? Okay. Just for the record, your name and address, and a brief description of what you need and why you need it.
Name first.
Philip, P-H-I-L-I-P.
Got it. Got it. And you're looking for the legalization of an existing deck. Yeah.
Why do you want this? Why do you want to keep the shed there?
Number one, I've had it there for over 12 years, and I know I had a permit 12 years ago, and he asking me for papers, which I don't have. My wife passed away since then and everything. She kept there all the papers. And they asked me if I could move the shed 25 feet, and I had a contractor come in. He said, no way could we move that shed. If we tried, he says that we would demolish it.
There's a lot of water in our backyard, so to move it, you
Yeah.
need to move it into the middle of the lake every time it rains, or move it back would be the same thing.
Right.
Where it is now, it's on blocks, gets wet, so the bottom's like starting to like, so they said no way could they move it, because they said they moved the whole.
Understood. Understood. Yeah.
I guess when we put it up in 2008, it was legal. But we
Yes.
didn't get a permit then, so you just get the permit now, so now the new is wide, farther range, 25 instead of the older.
And why are you getting legalization? Are you selling or
No,
just want to get legalization?
yeah.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what we do. What we generally do is, so we could get a good feel and understanding of what's going on, we'd like to do a site visit, right? We'd like to go visit your home on, not this Saturday, but next Saturday at about 9 o'clock. And we'll, yes? Oh, it is. That,
It is Saturday, though.
it's Saturday, yeah. Are you guys available that Saturday?
During the day, yeah.
What's that date be? What's the
First thing in the morning, sure.
May 7th. So May 7th, all right, we are going to come visit your home about 9 o'clock in the morning.
Does he have to be up in the house every day?
You don't need to be. I mean,
I can be there.
that's fine. And we will be there. The deck is existing, obviously. Is there any way that you...
It's a shed.
A shed, I'm sorry. Is there any way that you can identify the property lines for us to see? No?
I've had it, I've been in the house since 1963, and I've had my whole yard fenced in, okay? And this shed is, was it 12 feet, 10 inches from the existing fence.
Is it?
And I've had it there, like I say, over 12
There
years.
is another little, probably 4 inches that's ours, or 6 inches in
Yeah.
between our fence and the,
Yeah.
we're not.
So,
So the fence is more or less a property line.
yeah, right.
Well, we put the fence because we had an in-ground pool at the time, but we had to have the fence. We no longer have the in-ground pool, so
Right, but
it's still there.
but to David's point, the fence will help us identify the property lines. Yeah, okay.
Is that what you're basing the measurements
Well,
on?
when they said measure, I measured from the fence to the package.
Okay.
The package shed, the fence was measured.
Okay, so there's probably a little bit of a buffer technically between, okay.
I don't know how much.
So, any old survey you have, which can give, any old survey? Survey? Uh-huh, no, nothing, 63, so that will help.
The dimensions, Barbara, that the applicant has written and requested is, you guys are actually measuring to the fence, correct? and you're making the assumption that the fence is the property line.
I think I
Our
have,
fence is here, we probably have more property.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the concern is that you did the opposite, and the property line is inside the fence. And if you do go to sell,
We bought the house, it was me, his brother.
yeah,
We got the tax and everything.
yeah, we've just had it happen where people are, yeah.
My uncle moved in, the new people moved in, we didn't tell them that, the grass is here, to here, and between the two houses, now we're expecting to get ours. I didn't count it, so we might have that extra 4 feet.
Okay,
Because we put the fence up just in the back there, which more, property line is going to the back there.
okay. Yeah, you just need to be confident, because if we approve it and it turns out that, you know, it's technically less, then you would be here again, potentially.
It's not going to be,
Okay.
we found out when our other neighbors sold the house, they had a little bit on that side too.
Okay.
I should just supposed to be honest, we didn't know. One fell down, we paid for it.
All right, so I think what we'll do is we'll plan on doing the site visit. And we'll be there at 9 o'clock Saturday the 7th. Right?
9.
Would it help us in any way to get some sort of a GIS, Laura?
No, because on GIS, the lines are so off and skewed,
Okay.
it would only be work. I won't accept them even in a building permit.
Okay.
You can't measure from them.
You know what we'll do is we'll come out there, we'll see what we got, and then,
Hey, did you know if the neighboring property that's sold had a survey done?
Did Mike have a survey done?
I don't know, I have to check with my neighbor.
Hey, would that be on file?
We could check, but unless they brought one in for a reason,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have it.
Well, I think he had a survey when he sold, right before he sold the house, so he would know as soon as he comes.
I know, but if you pay for a survey as an individual, the town doesn't just get one. People, when they are doing something and have a survey, we ask them for a copy, and then we have one on file.
So you don't know if he gave you one, should he give you?
Only if he needed something from us before he sold would he have given us one. But I'll check tomorrow, just in case.
Hey, we've just had issues where, you know, someone thinks their lot is like this and it's like this, or the opposite, especially when it's older properties.
We don't know the prices here, we knew it was here. The trees went out here, he had a survey, and said that was our tree, so we paid for it, that's ours, but there now.
Okay.
So we paid $4,000, he paid the little survey fee, we paid the fee.
yeah, we'll come and take a look and see what you got.
Local and cheap.
You know, and then, yeah, we'll have to figure it out from there. All right? So we'll see you on the 7th. Oh, you know what, Barbara, we want to schedule a public hearing, right?
Yes, for May 9th.
Yeah, we're also gonna schedule you guys,
Oh, wait a second. May 10th, I'm
May
sorry.
10th.
May 10th.
Now, excuse me, before you leave, I just want to let you know, we're going to schedule your public hearing for the meeting on the 10th. All right, so you'll be here May 10th,
Yeah, we have it.
okay? Okay. We'll see you on the 7th. Thank you. All right, next item on the agenda tonight is appeal number 227753, variance Erica and Kurt Rottenkobler, seeking an area variance section 24037 of the district regulations in an R20 zoning district where no accessory structure can be larger than 600 square feet in size and not more than 20 feet in height. The applicant is proposing a 30 by 36 foot garage that's 1,080 square feet and 25 feet in height, thus requesting a variance of 480 square feet. The property is located at 4 Caroline Drive West and is identified as tax grid number 605603200438 in the town of Wappingers. Is Erica or Kurt present?
Before we move on.
Yes.
This actually requires 2 variances.
Okay.
So the first variance is, as you stated, where 600 feet is allowed, they're asking for 1,080, so they'll need a variance of 480 square feet. But it also states that it can't be higher than 20 feet, and they're proposing 25, so we'll adjust that for the public hearing. That'll be a second variance of 5 feet.
Yeah, you need a variance is 5 for the
So I
height as
just wanted
well.
to
Yeah,
get that out now.
Yeah, we should have submitted that in the application.
Okay. Again, for the record, just state your name and address, please.
Erica Rattenkober, I'm at 4 Caroline Drive West, Wappingers Falls.
Gotcha. And again, just for the board's benefit, a brief description of what you need, why you need it.
We're looking to build a detached garage, a rather big one, 30 by 36. Ideally, we would like it attached to the house, and then we don't have the size restrictions. But unfortunately, we have a drainage easement that runs right next to the house, right where the driveway is, so we can't attach it to the house.
How big is the property?
It's 0.9 acres?
20 acres.
Yeah.
Give me a minute. Is it a pond or a pool on the property? Pool.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the aerial was when it was being built, so it's, at that point, it looked like a pond.
Property is kind of a little odd shaped.
Okay, so far I haven't seen where it's going on the property. Am I missing
Oh, it should be in there.
Should be on the little
Okay,
site
there it
plan.
is, the last,
That last page.
yeah,
Sorry, yeah, there was a lot in there, sorry.
okay.
Just to the right of the house.
Yeah, so instead of going into the house, we'll go into the garage opposite,
Got it.
and we separated by that easement.
Okay, now the garage will be,
3 bay.
okay. Pretty big footprint.
Yeah, it is large. And in speaking with the contractors, they were like, well, the board might be worried it's gonna be for commercial use, and it's solely personal. I threw in a bunch of pictures there. We have 4 vehicles. We have all kinds of kids' bikes and sheds, and I'd like to actually get rid of the shed, and then consolidate everything into that garage.
Gotcha.
And that's just the size that'll fit everything.
What's going on the upstairs of the shed, of the new garage, I mean?
Just storage.
2-story?
Storage, Christmas
Storage.
decorations, Halloween decorations, all the stuff we have sort of crammed in everywhere.
Is there an actual design or picture of what the shed will look like?
It's on
Yeah.
one of the sheets.
It's on the
Oh,
smaller
there
one.
it is. I see it.
Would the garage then would be sided similar to the
Correct.
home?
Yes.
And what was the answer to the upstairs? I apologize.
It's
Oh,
storage.
it's just storage. Yeah, so it's Christmas decorations and Halloween decorations and, coolers and all the other miscellaneous stuff I have sort of just stuck everywhere, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Right, I'm gonna, we schedule a site visit. We'd like to do a site visit again, will be that Saturday, the May 7th.
Okay.
Probably somewhere between 9:30 and 10 o'clock.
9:30 and 10.
It'd be great if you could locate that property line somehow.
The property line, and do we need,
Yes.
The neighbors bought the house recently.
Yes.
And I cleaned off
there's
Surveyor.
markers.
the markers, and it's actually spiked like a street.
Perfect.
with,
Gotcha. Okay, great.
And would you like us to stake out the
The
garage as
shed,
well?
Yes.
footprint of the shed, that'd be great.
That would be helpful. Yeah.
Okay. What I'd like to do too is also schedule your public hearing for the 9th, I'm sorry, for the,
Tenth.
right? For the 10th, I'm sorry, for the
Is it
10th as well.
possible we'll move that a week? My daughter has a chorus
We
concert
can
on it.
move it to the following meeting.
Yeah, that's fine, whenever
Okay.
that would,
2 weeks.
It'll
2
be
weeks?
2 weeks from the 10th,
20.
which would be,
24th, I think?
20.
Yes, 24th.
so we'll schedule your public hearing there for May 24th.
Okay.
And we'll be at the house on the 7th.
Yep, that still works.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Next on the agenda, appeal number 227754, area variance, Brian and Christine Zanstra, seeking an area variance, section 24037 of district regulations in an R40 zoning district, where 50 feet to the rear yard property line is required. The applicant can provide 34 feet for the installation of a 17 by 26 above-ground pool, thus requesting a variance of 16 feet. The property is located at 6 Fowler House Road and is identified as tax grid number 615704552342. And there are 2 numbers, B? There are 2 numbers on the? Just the one? Okay. So it's the 342 is correct?
342.
Okay. In the town of Wappinger. So, I'm gonna guess you're Brian.
Yes, I am.
All right.
Yeah, Brian Zanstra, 6
Brian
Fowler
Zanstra,
House Road.
Fowler House Road. I get a lot going on Fowler House Road these days.
Yeah, and we're here for, coincidentally, basically the same thing as our neighbors across the street, to install an above-ground pool, and it's the same issues that are driving the need for the variance. The lot sizes are pretty small on the street, and we're working around the placement of the septic system.
Let's take a quick peek here.
So your property's on the other side of the street?
That's correct.
So you
Yeah,
have,
we're right across the street
You have
from
the
them.
Tractor Supply behind you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's the property line we're looking for a variance to, actually. It's screened from that side, from their fence, and the side yard is fenced also. That's our fence.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Again, pretty straightforward. Again, I guess, I think if I remember correctly, there's a fence right in the back there between you and the...
And Tractor Supply,
Yeah.
they installed a berm and a fence on top of that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's gonna be well screened from all sides.
Got it. You guys, any other questions? No. Yeah, pretty straightforward. And we're very familiar with Fowler House Road now.
Sure.
So we will do your site visit as well on May 7th.
Okay.
Probably be there somewhere around 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
And I think that's it. And we'll schedule your public hearing and for the May 10th meeting as well.
Okay.
Okay?
Congratulations on your homework. Outstanding.
Thank you.
Today.
It's great. Okay, so B has something for you.
What's going on Fowler House?
All right, so back to the beginning. Next item on tonight's agenda will be the adjourned public hearing, appeal number 21740, interpretation, Ron Evangelista et al. The Town of Wappinger Zoning Board of Appeals will conduct an adjourned public hearing on an interpretation of Section 240-52C, 240-21D, and 240-15, non-residential schedule definition of mixed uses of the district zoning regulations in an HM zoning district. The applicant is seeking an interpretation of the zoning administrator Barbara Roberti's interpretation of the zoning code dated June 20, 2021. The property is located at 123-125 New Hamburg Road, 237 Route 9D, 2361-2365, Route 9D, and is identified as tax grid numbers 615701, 048643, 0.21 acres, and 057642, 0.20 acres, 057654, 0.69 acres, 059643, 0.14 acres, and 0410637, 0.55 acres in the town of Wappinger. Public hearing January 2025, public hearing adjourned to March 22nd, 2022, public hearing adjourned to April 26, 2022. Can I have a motion, please, to open the public hearing?
Motion to open the public hearing.
Second?
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. So just quickly, again, tonight's, the only issue really before this board tonight as it pertains to this application is strictly the interpretation of Ms. Roberti's to the zoning board code. And I believe there are some folks here who would like to speak on behalf of this application. Would Mr. Stringer want to be the first one?
Mr. Chairman,
Oh,
if
I'm
I
sorry.
might, just to,
Yes,
for record purposes, as you've indicated, this is an appeal of the
Correct.
decision rendered by the zoning administrator, and in the record already is the original application requesting the interpretation, and there have been submittals by both the applicant's attorney, a memorandum of law, as well as some other documents, as well as from the property owner, and a submission of documents and a memorandum. So they are in the record, and the board has been provided with copies of the same. And with that knowledge, council should highlight anything that's in it, but those full-length detail,
Ken,
we have to keep it on this side for the camera.
So, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, thank you for having us today. As you can see, moving furniture is not my preferred line of work. I'm here to speak on behalf of the persons, the members of this community who have brought this appeal. And the appeal seeks very specific, or poses very specific questions, and we seek an answer from you. And we seek an answer from your board because your board has the exclusive jurisdiction in this town government to address it. That is so important, that is so precious. It is so important that in designing our town governments, the state made it optional as to whether or not a town would have a planning board, but made it mandatory that the town would have a zoning board of appeals. Because the zoning board of appeals, that function of interpreting how a zoning code should be implemented, or I should say how a zoning code should be enforced on this level as neighbors, is important, so important that it became mandatory. And the reason why I say that to you before we get into what's going to be a presentation from three lawyers, which if you're still awake at the end of it, that's great. Maybe I hope you will be wide awake at the end of it, because I hope you will see that we bring to the table some very significant arguments as to why the relief our clients request ought to be granted. But in preparing for this hearing tonight, I read all of the documents from both sides, and I was surprised. I was extraordinarily surprised at how badly it appears that the other side of this controversy did not want this hearing to take place. I'm going through Mr. Ward Willis's correspondence, and he says to you at page 2 of his letter of November 1 that the appeal to you is moot because the planning board has already granted site plan approval. He says to you that, on the same page, that by granting site plan approval and by granting a special permit, the planning board has taken from you your jurisdiction
to make the decisions we are going to ask you to make tonight. He says to you, in his letter to you of November 19th, 2021, he says to you, on the first page of that letter, the ZBA has no jurisdiction to evaluate the intent of the zoning code or render a zoning code provision null and void, which is what appellants are requesting this board to do. He says to you that a vote in favor of this application will nullify the planning board's approval. He says to you that you, and this is on page 4 of his November 19, 2021 letter, the ZBA does not have the authority to reverse the planning board's determination of the Gasland project. All these things he says to you are wrong. The first thing is, we're not asking you to reverse the planning board's approval. We're asking you to answer questions that were raised during that process that were open. There are two specific questions, and I'll get to those in a second, but it's important to understand what happened here. During the course of the planning process, I raised two issues at a public hearing, one with respect to apartments over gasoline stations generally, and one with respect to, is this a grocery store we're getting or is this a convenience store? I wrote a letter as on behalf of my clients, as is the law requires I do. I wrote a letter, I followed the rules, and I asked for an opinion from the zoning enforcement officer, and I got that opinion. The law then says anybody, not just me who sent the letter, but anybody in this town who was deemed aggrieved by that answer has the right to come before you and ask you to review what was said and to say whether you agree with it or not, because you are the next level of judicial review. That's what I did. When we received the letter from the zoning administrator, I sent the letter to the planning board. I said, well, we have an answer from the zoning administrator, but we're going to the ZBA. And in my view, you should probably stop until we have an answer from the ZBA, so we have a complete record before you decide what you're going to do. That position was opposed by the applicant. And the applicant's argument to the planning board resulted in the planning board making these resolutions of approval while the question remained open before your board as to whether or not certain things they assumed to be true were. And so that's a calendar, right? I mean, I got the letter. We have within 60 days to ask to come before your board. The request to come before your board was timely made, was approximately 30 days. In the process, we met other persons in the town who were interested in getting answers to these questions, and we filed our appeal. I did with Mr. Caruso, who represents some citizens who live in this town, and with the assistance of Mary Kay Ephraim, she's right here. And we did that. And we came to you because you do have the power to answer the questions we ask. And if you answer these questions in a manner that the planning board has to go back and reconsider certain aspects of its approval, that is the choice the planning board made when it decided not to wait on your answer. That's pretty, so if you vote tonight or at any point to answer either of the questions I am to pose to you in the negative, yes, it will have an effect on what's been approved. But it was the planning board's choice to vote without hearing your decision first. That vote didn't take away from you the important role that you play in this town's government and why we're here tonight to ask you to consider our plea and consider our arguments and make two decisions. We're going to ask you two questions tonight. The first question is going to be, can an apartment be built on top of a gasoline station at the location that it is proposed to be built in this application? We're not talking about anywhere else in town. We're talking about the application that's before the planning board that was approved with that apartment on it. If you find that the zoning code does not allow that, then you will refer your answer back to the planning board for further proceedings. If you find that, you will not be annulling the appeal of the determination. You will have answered a question that the planning board should have waited for before they made their decision. The second question we're going to ask you is whether or not a general store or a grocery store is allowed as an accessory use, as a convenience store, as is permitted under the code's definition of a gasoline filling station in this town. And in this town, there's a very specific definition of a gasoline filling station, which says you can have a convenience store, and a convenience store can sell items of convenience. They can sell cigarettes, they can sell automobile accessories, they can sell snacks, they can sell soda, beer, milk, cups of coffee. As you will hear, this application contains a commercial area of 3,600 square feet. And you will hear and see what this applicant does at other locations with buildings, with commercial spaces of the same size. We will not speak to whether or not the use at the other locations are legal or not. That's not why we're here. What we are going to ask you at the end is whether that use that you're going to see photographs of is an accessory use permitted under the definition of the gasoline filling station in the town's code. If you find it is permitted, then we're all done. If you find it's not, then you will have to inform the planning board of your determination. Because, as you will hear tonight on the record before the planning board, not a single question was asked as to how the 3,600 square foot commercial space was intended to be used as a convenience store. Has 3,600 square feet, a lot of cigarettes, a lot of those little dangly pine things that make your car smell better, a lot of little cups of coffee. It's 3,600 square feet, which is bigger than this room. Bigger than this room. So when we're done, I'm going to ask you to please, after you've heard everything, to say no. You can't build an apartment on top of a gasoline station at this location because the code doesn't allow it. And no, we don't want a general store or a grocery store as an accessory use to a gasoline filling station when the statute only allows a convenience store, the sale of, and I quote you from the statute, the sale of convenient retail, the retail sale of convenient items. So I would going to defer now to Michael Caruso, who will speak to you about the issue of standing. Standing is a predicate issue. In order for any of our clients to be heard by you and ask for a decision, we have to demonstrate that we have standing, which means that we are connected in some fashion to the issues before this board, and that your board's decision will result in an impact on the lives or the property of the people who come before you. I'm going to introduce you, please, to my colleague, Michael Caruso, who will speak to you on that point.
Sure.
Good evening, everybody. May I?
Sure.
Take some? Thank you. Oh my God, I am not singing. Everyone here will be running, despite my great ancestor from Italy who long ago sang. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience tonight. I know you gave us a calendar slot at the end, and we appreciate the time to pick up where Ken left off. I'm here to talk to you about a very procedural issue, and lawyers love procedure, but it's very important for this board, and I'm going to pick on Nick Ward-Willis a little bit. Sorry, Nick. But Nick has raised some issues on behalf of his client that this board needs to hear about. And I'm going to tell you with 100% clarity that those issues can be resolved in favor of all of the applicants, all 5 of them. So tonight, just briefly building on Ken's point, before we get to what standing is, just there was an issue raised, I think Mr. Ward-Willis had raised it, about whether the parties who initially sought Ms. Roberti's interpretation are the same parties, the same 5, that are here tonight on a notice of appeal and appealing that decision to this board. And Ken had rightfully cited a Town Law 267, A, subsection 4, which says hearing appeals, and what this board may do is it may appeal, and any party who is aggrieved may take an appeal of a decision of an officer, department, board, bureau of the town. Any person aggrieved, what does that mean? We'll get into that in a second. All 5 of the parties who are seeking your guidance tonight are here and made that appeal on time. So there is no issue in terms of who made the application, who is here, and who benefits from your hard work. That would be Franca Petrillo, Ron Evangelista, Marcy Wagman, 2337 Route 9D LLC, and Wappingers Properties LLC. Now, on the concept of standing, this could put people to sleep quickly. I will be brief, I promise. The concept of standing, as you may have heard, as some of you may know, certainly the lawyers in the room, is about whether a party is aggrieved, whether that party has or will suffer a real and concrete impact from an action that is taken or contemplated to be taken as a result of perhaps a board's action, a planning board's approval of a project, for example. And I would submit to you tonight that that analysis, which really has 2 main points, can be answered very clearly in the affirmative. So in examining this concept, what does this mean? There's case law beyond your wildest dreams on what standing means and how it changes and how each case is specific. But there are certain core elements that will always remain in standing and what you have to think about tonight. Number 1, your distance to a project. How far do you live, or how far are you from this project or this application or this activity? There is a legal presumption, an inference of a harm to you as a property owner if you are within certain feet, certain geographic distance of a project like this. And we submit to you that all 5 of the parties that have taken this appeal to you are all aggrieved by virtue of their proximity. Admittedly, some are farther than others. Ms. Petrillo lives several hundred feet from this property. You could just about throw a rock to it. It doesn't get any closer than that. And proximity is important because, I said, the law creates an inference. If you establish that proximity, there is an inference of harm. That exists here. Mr. Ward-Willis has admitted it on behalf of his client. In his papers, he indicates that there is, quote-unquote, close proximity that some of the applicants have demonstrated, and he disagrees on whether others have or have not. But it only takes 1 in front of this board. 1 of the 5, but I submit to you that all 5 have this proximity. And that proximity is established by less than several hundred feet clearly. Ms. Petrillo is 226 feet. Mr. Evangelista is 820 feet. 2337 Route 9D is 300 feet. Wappinger's properties on the higher side is 4,500 or so feet. And Ms. Wagman is around the same distance away. But the issue is not whether necessarily all of them are so far or so close, but what does that mean, right? So in this case, the harm that will be imparted by this project, which is the second step of this analysis that you have to do, who is impacted and who is within the zone of interests that are affected by this project. So the proximity will automatically get you standing. That's clear in the law. We have that. That's not even in question. Mr. Ward Willis admits it. That's open and shut. On the zone of interest, now what does that mean? What that means for this board is we have to demonstrate, all 5 applicants, that they are going to suffer a concrete injury. Not hypothetical, not academic, not something attenuated, nothing fantasy, concrete. And that, two, that is different from something that the general public at large will experience. We can establish that very easily. To that point, the project proposes a very large gas station, convenience store, and residential apparatus in one building that will be illuminated 18 hours per day. Fluorescent lights, cars coming to and fro, traffic impacts, direction of travel impacts, noise impacts from constant traffic, fuel delivery, smell, runoff, impervious surface coverage, you name it. There are many concrete impacts from this project that will be immediately felt. And that's what this zone of interest analysis is asking you to look at. And the people who live closest to it, within the embrace of this project's envelope, will feel it the most. Certainly Ms. Petrillo will feel it the most, arguably, by her proximity alone, but the other property owners who have the same bundle of rights, who own their property, who had an expectation to live in a place that wasn't congested, that wasn't lit up like a spaceship 18 hours a day and isn't more noisy than it used to be, they have that same expectation. And that's the harm that they will live day in and day out, regardless of where they live in their physical distance to this project. So I submit to you that Ms. Petrillo and all 5 of the applicants have demonstrated to you and can certainly and have spoken in their affidavits about the negative environmental impacts that this project will yield. The community character of this historic district that will be eroded further by this project. The impacts that I just identified to you that are physically and tangible, that will be tangibly known to them. And again, these are issues that are not to be, we're not hypothesizing them. That's not what this is asking you to do. These are real impacts. People here tonight, and they've submitted papers to you that show you that these will be generated. They will be felt, they will be lived with 18 hours a day. So I would submit to this board that Mr. Ward Willis is dead wrong on the issue of whether these are public interests or whether these are specific to the neighbors who are living with this. They're absolutely specific to these individuals. And I would just, for the board's edification on standing, if you will, legal standing is a doctrine that lawyers wax poetic on, but it's not intended to be a preclusively applied doctrine. What that means for this board is it's a flexible concept to a degree. It's not meant to prevent people from coming here tonight and expressing what they think are real concerns to you, which they have. As Mr. Stenger indicated, it's not to be used so that our voices can't be heard and the merits of their position can't be heard. It's the exact opposite. It's not intended to preclude. It's meant to encourage and to bring people forward with interests that are real and tangible. So I would submit to the board that the standing analysis is very simple. My position and Ken's position and Mary Kate's position is that all 5 applicants have standing, clearly. And if you just go by proximity alone, that one point enough, there are at least 2 to 3 of the applicants who own residential properties that clearly satisfy proximity standing, that proximity exception. That is enough by itself. And I'll close on one point, which I know will be a focus of and it certainly has been a focus of the Gasland submissions to the board, and that is whether a commercial operation or a commercial interest is any less persuasive for standing purposes than a residential owner. So if you're hit in the pocketbook and your business is not doing as well because there is a competing business on the corner, Mr. Ward Willis has cited cases that clearly show that a commercial interest alone does not foreclose a party from coming to this board and arguing that it has real interests that are affected other than its commercial interests. Again, property owners are not, they're not dissimilar in this respect. Your use of your property, your enjoyment of your property will all be diminished qualitatively in the same way. So I just wanted the board to understand what our position is on standing, that I feel it's almost open and shut. It couldn't be clearer on this record. And if the board has any questions, I'm certainly happy to answer them now in sequence. Okay, well, I'll happily yield the floor back to Ken. Do you want this?
Yeah, no, leave it in there. Mr. Concho, let me ask you a question. In terms of the public record of this, do I have to speak in that for people who are watching us to hear it? Or
Yeah, you have to.
I have to use it, okay. Let's put those up. Let's put them up on the front.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, I'm going to address whether or not the current statutory scheme, or I should say the current zoning code in this town, permits the construction and occupancy of an apartment on top of a gasoline station in this town. And in doing so, we have to look at a little history. In March of 2019, the town board adopted section 240-52. And it refers to gas stations, and with respect to gas stations, that code said the following: the use of a building for any residence or sleeping quarters shall not be permitted. So in 2019, in March, we had a law adopted by the planning board that said no apartments on top of a gas station. They're not permitted. Then we go to December of 2019, and there is an amendment of that statute. And it is that amendment upon which this application and this issue now hinges. That amendment says in part that use of a building for any residence or sleeping quarters shall not be permitted except, and now we have the exception, except, now we have a location where we can do this. And the second sentence says, nope, that's not the sentence I'm looking for. Except that in the Hamlet mixed-use district, under certain conditions, they are permitted. That happens in December of 2019, 9 months after the town board originally said, no, you can't do this anywhere in town. In December of 2019, the town board says, yes, you can. You can do it in this district, in the Hamlet mixed-use district, under certain conditions. But what the town board does not do is leave a legislative history. There's no record that we can find of debate on the board or of a policy statement or some reason given by the town board as to why this modification was made. and how it might be interpreted as put into use, not only standing on its own, but standing within the entire zoning code. So it's impossible to say from the record before the town board what the town board's intent was in adopting the statute. We only have the statute to look at and the effect of it. Now, we now know the amendment says we can put apartments on top of gas stations in the hamlet. But there are restrictions on that. The dwelling units, that would be the apartments, which are separate from the gas station use. Restriction number 1. You want to put an apartment on a gas station? It's got to be separate from the gas station use. And then it may be permitted above the commercial ground floor use in the principal gas station building. So one of the things that your board is charged with doing is interpreting a statute, and sometimes in a statute is just simply not capable of being interpreted because the way it's written, it is not susceptible to a meaning. It is impossible to reconcile one part of the statute with the other. One part of the statute cancels out the other, as is here the case. Let's take a look. In the Hamlet mixed-use district, you can have dwelling units which are separate from the gas station use. So separate means apart, And yet, they may be permitted above the commercial ground floor use in, which means part of, the principal gas station building. We can't ask the town board what they meant when they put together a concept that an apartment, in order to be allowed in this district, had to be separated from the gas station use. And at the same time, it had to be located in the principal gas station building. We can't ask them that question. What we can do, what you're charged with doing, your responsibility, is to read this. And I would say to you that on the plain language of the statute, the two parts are irreconcilable. It is absolutely impossible, without going outside of the language of the statute, without having someone get up and say, well, the town board meant this, or, well, common sense means that. If we look at the language as we must, you can't make the two work. Separate means you've got to be apart from the gas station use in the principal gas station building. Means you've got to be located in the building where the gas station use is. Now, someone can come up and argue and say, well, certainly if we put this here, it can work there. Here's a use, but that's not the first level of examination, of interpretation. The first level is, what does that say? Can I reconcile it? If it can't be reconciled, this board can say, we can't make sense of it. We can't interpret it. It has no meaning. The town board has to do something about the statute to give it meaning. And if it has no meaning, it doesn't mean there's it's an empty question as to what controls. If it has no meaning, it didn't amend the statute that was in place in March of 2019. And if it didn't amend the statute that was in place in March of 2019, then there is no apartment on top of a gas station anywhere in this town. So that's part one of this. But there's also more to it than just that. There is your entire zoning code. Now, I expect that what you will hear in argument in return is that let's use common sense. Let's try to figure out what the town board intended and give meaning to what the town intended. And I urge you, I ask you to reject that theory. Common sense is not a substitution for analyzing what these words mean. Imagining what the town board's intent was is not the same as looking at what these words mean. If you can't make separate from the gas station use reconcilable with the fact that the apartment has to be in the principal gas station building, then this has no effect. It's a nullity. And you can find that it is a nullity because you can't make the two halves work. But if you don't, if you need to go look at the whole code, we should look at the rest of the code, because if you interpret this and say, you know what, I think that tie goes to the runner, it's close enough, I think somehow that I understand this can be reconciled. And you say, look, you know, it could go either way, but I think it can go this way. Well, you have to look at the rest of the town code. The town code in section 14520 says, given the choice, you must always follow the most restrictive code section because it's a big code. People make mistakes. They don't cross-reference everything. So if there is a provision in this code that says you can't do this, then you have to honor that. You have to honor that provision first. Even if you believe that this is allowed or you can somehow reconcile these, if there is another provision out there that says you can't do that, you can't assume that it was also amended by this statute. Why? Because there's no language of amendment in here. It doesn't say that this statute will be controlling over all other codes, all other statutes in existence. It doesn't say any of that. And as we said before, the town board didn't say any of that. We don't know what the town board said. They just voted for it. So we can't look at this and say that amended other statutes that exist that would prohibit this use. And there are two specific statutes that would prohibit this use. One is the definition. The definition of a gas filling station allows defined accessory uses. I just read part of it to you. In addition to the sale of retail, you can do automobile repairs, you can do other things that are related to running a gas station. But nowhere in that definition does it say that we can have an apartment as an accessory use. And those definitions in your town code, if a use doesn't fall within that definition, it doesn't exist. And your town code, in the definition of a gasoline filling station, does not say that we can have an apartment on top of it as an accessory use. And that's an interesting point as well, because what this says is that this statute says, look, you've got to be separate from the gasoline use, and you've got to be above the commercial ground floor use, which presumes that there will be one, and in that you're still located in the principal gas station building. You're not in a separate building. In other words, you're in the same building where the gasoline station is. And the interesting thing is here that we are allowed a commercial space because we're allowed the sale of retail convenience items. That's what we're allowed. That's the accessory use. And as we all know here, an accessory use is subordinate and only exists because of the principal use. So there is no separate area within the principal gas station building that is not subject to the gas station use. Because the accessory use only exists because the gas station use is located throughout that building. So that's a problem. But the biggest problem, I think, is that nobody thought to go to the mixed-use definitions for this district and take a look at what is permitted as a mixed use in this district. You have in front of you all of our papers. I'm not going to quote the statute at length. One of our submissions has a whole schedule. But the general principle is this. A mixed-use district allows and encourages a mixture of residential uses and commercial uses. And so when you look at the mixed-use definition for this district, you'll see that you can mix use with well, maybe I should just find this. I don't want to. Do we have it handy? All right. Yeah, that'd be great. So the mixed use has specific definitions as to uses. Got it. And it says, in fact, mixed use, which is a grouping of attached or detached structures containing a mix of residential dwelling units and one or more of the following commercial uses. One or more of the following commercial uses. Retail stores and shops. Personal service businesses. Professional or business offices and banks. What doesn't it say? It does not say gas stations. And if you're not on that list of definitions for the mixed use, you can't claim the cover of that statute. And here, that is what's happening. In particular, in here, the proponent of this gas station takes the position that, wait a minute, I come under that statute. How do I get under that statute? I get under that statute because I have a retail use. And if I have a retail use, I fit within the definition of the mixed-use district. But that retail use, such as it exists, is an accessory use to a use that is not listed in that definition. That argument does more than put the horse before the cart. It puts the retail use that wouldn't exist if the non-permitted use wasn't the principal use as the basis for letting the non-permitted use get the protection of the statute. It's a clever argument, but it fails. And so, that brings us to the next question, which is the retail use. The retail use, I'm going to defer to my colleague, Mary Kate Ephraim. She's done some investigation. She's going to share with you the work of that. But I would just want to go back to one statement here, and that is on page 8 of Mr. Ward Willis's letter of November 19th, 2021. Even he, who I've known for a long time, is a very skilled attorney, and we are often against each other, but sometimes together. But even he makes an admission. At the top of that letter, I'll read it to you. Dwelling units can be constructed separately, this is his argument, from the gas station use when they are erected above the accessory commercial ground floor of the gas station building. The dwelling units are separate from the gas pumps and are located in a separate structure. And are located in a separate structure. That's not what this says, and that's not what was approved. These apartments are on top of the structure of the gasoline station, the 3,600 square foot commercial space, which you will still have to consider. They're not on a separate structure. And the 3,600 square foot commercial space would not exist but for the fact that the gasoline station is the primary use. So you can't do it. And you can't have two accessory uses. I thank you very much for hearing me on this. I'm going to give the floor to Mary Kate Ephraim. She's got some exhibits that I'm going to distribute for her. I'm also going to give her this because I think, why don't you just give me this? Thank you.
Ken, I've got one. I've got one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman and the members of the board. I'm here to discuss our last question that we gave to Ms. Roberti, whether Gasland was required to have applied to your board for a use variance. In Wappinger, you can have a gasoline station with an accessory use of a convenience store. It is in the definition of gasoline filling station. Convenience stores have a limited meaning under this definition. The retail sale of convenience items, including but not limited to snacks and beverages. Convenience items, snacks and beverages. Convenience stores are different from grocery stores and general stores. They have limited goods for sale. A consumer does not go to convenience stores when they're looking for specific brands or a variety of choices. They go to grocery stores and markets when they need those things. But in Wappinger, you cannot have a gas station with an accessory use of a grocery store or a general store. Only the sale of convenience items is allowed under the definition of gasoline filling station. Gasland was granted site plan approval and the special use permit for a gas station with fueling pumps, one-bedroom apartments, and a 3,630 square foot convenience store. That is a big convenience store, bigger than most houses in the town. It makes you wonder how the applicant is going to make enough money selling snacks and beverages to support a space of that size. There is no information in Gasland's application about the convenience store. The planning board never asked them about what they would sell in the space. So we went out and looked at other stores owned by Gasland in the area of comparable size to see what they were selling. Before you is the affidavit of Marcy Wagman, one of the appellants in this proceeding. Exhibits B and D are pictures of goods for sale at 2 stores of comparable size owned by Gasland. If you wouldn't mind flipping to the first one of these, did you know you can choose from 5 brands of cat food at a Gasland store? And the second page, to deal with the aftermath of that choice, 3 brands of kitty litter. Next page, a variety of sources of sauces and dressings, 3 different brands of tuna fish. How about a new jacket or a deal on quality leather belts? Let's go over to Exhibit D. If you're stuck at home with the kids and need a fun baking project, maybe you bake a cake or brownies or cookies. That looks like a 5-pound bag of sugar, oil, everything you need to pass an afternoon at home. I don't see how baking a cake while driving is a convenience to drivers. Next page. Cleaning products for every room of the house. It is impossible to tell what kind of operation Gasland intends for this site. But from the sheer size and its other businesses in the area of comparable size, it doesn't look like it will limit itself to articles that are purchased frequently for immediate use with a minimum of effort, such as tobacco, magazines, gum, and candy. That's the Merriam-Webster definition of convenience good. It is also what is shown in the last set of photographs attached to Ms. Wagman's affidavit, Exhibit F. This is a much smaller convenience store. You know, you can see from one end to the other. Multiple brands of cat food and litter, barbecue equipment, leather belts, and cake mix do not fit the definition of convenience goods. I thank the board for their time.
Thank you.
So in the end, there were two questions I said to you that we were going to ask you. One is that statute
I
really
thought your
author-
partner said it was going to be brief, too.
Okay, well, I'm trying to be honest on all counts. The first question is this. Does this statute allow an apartment to be constructed on a gas station at that location? If after you've considered and said yes, you've answered the question. If you answer the question and consider and the answer is no, you have not annulled the planning board's approval. You've just have answered a question that was open when they made that approval. They will have to consider your answer, and then they will have to amend their approval to accept your answer unless there is further litigation. With respect to the issue of the question that I raised from the beginning, can a general store, can a grocery store be accepted as an accessory use within the definition of a gasoline filling station? We simply don't have enough facts because the planning board never asked the applicant what it was going to do with its 3,600 square feet of commercial space. It's all empty. So in that case, you may say, we would very much like to hear a decision from your board that says, here is the rule. You can't use a convenience store under our code to disguise a grocery store. Whether that rule applies here or not, you may not be able to decide. You can enunciate the rule, but you don't have the facts because they don't exist on the planning board's record. So in that instance, this board can adjourn this meeting tonight on that issue and ask for that input from the applicant and his lawyer to tell you what they plan to do in there. Or you can refer, if you think the rule should be as I've asked you to find, you can send the matter back to the planning board for further proceedings to determine, now that you've enunciated the rule, let them go back and look at their application and look at their approval in the context of that rule. That doesn't annul this application. It just merely allows the planning board to implement the decisions that you have legally made and lawfully made that they have to follow. I know this has taken longer than we thought, but there's a lot of information here. I thank you all very much for giving us this time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Please state your name, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Nicholas Ward Willis with Keenan Bean PC, attorneys for the applicant Gasland Petroleum. I wasn't sure if I was hearing a bit of a Shakespeare because I think they don't protest too much. It's much to do about nothing, and the emperor has no clothes. But really what I want to start with is I'm a baseball fan. In Ken's analogy about Bataille goes to the runner, I've never quite understood or agreed with that analogy because Bataille doesn't go to the runner. The rule is the ball's got to get to the base before the runner's foot does. So if the runner's foot gets there at the time the ball does, it's not a tie because it didn't have a right to be there. It can occupy the base. And so the analogy is wrong. And Ken's statement about the separate dwelling units, separate from the gas station, is also wrong and incorrect. We don't go through what we've just heard for the past, I'll be generous, 45 minutes when the language is clear on its face. And the language in the statute is clear, and we're here to hear the appeal of the interpretation from Ms. Roberti, who listened and read Ken's arguments and statement, and after consideration gave her opinion. She didn't need to have to go through the intent or anything of that nature because the language is quite clear, and it's ironic that Ken provided you with both words because that's what he uses on page 8 of his memo, which I gave and want to print out copies for you to go through it and review it with you as well because it's germane to our discussion. There you go. Thank you, sir. So by way of background, Gasland received two special use permits, one for a mixed use and one for the gas station use. And the language we have here pertains to the dwelling units above the gas station. And I've copied page 8 from Ken's brief. It's similar to what's there. And the question we're arguing is about the dwelling units being separate from the gas station use. I think it's clear as day, the definition of separate. I don't think there's any dispute, something apart, a discrete or independent unit. The dwelling units here, as Ms. Roberti found, are clearly separate from the gas station use. They're not connected by a staircase. They're on a separate floor. They have their own separate door. They have their own separate utility. They have their own separate address and designations. They are not connected by stairs. You can't get through them through the same way. It would be different if that dwelling unit were something where the gas station manager could use and it's connected on the same floor. It's clearly a separate use. We need to also remind ourselves that we're talking about a mixed use. So when we talk about separate, they don't need to be in a different building. They're going to be in a mixed use building, and that's what you have before you. And when you look at the comprehensive plan, and we've provided this in our paper, so I don't want to repeat what we've already argued in our paper, so I'm going to try to be brief, especially given the hour. So the comprehensive plan talks about mixed use and encouraging apartments in the downtown area. And so you're going to have different uses in the building. That's what you have on this property. 3 different uses: the commercial use, the convenience store, you have the dwelling units, and you have the gas station use. And there's no need to go through and do the machinations that the appellants have done when it's quite clear what the language means on its face. It's clear from the statute as to the separate use. So, question for you, what they should be asking is, are the dwelling units separate from the gas station use? The answer to that is clearly yes. Walk into the gas station, pump your gas. You're not pumping gas from the bedroom. You're not going to buy cooked items that were cooked upstairs in the kitchen upstairs, right? The units have their own independent kitchens. They have their own independent bathrooms. So those dwelling units are clearly separate from the gas station use. No different than if you had a mixed-use building with a dentist office on the bottom and an office on the top. To establish it's a mixed use, it's a different use, you're separate and apart from it. You're not getting your teeth done while you're getting your shoes shined, as having 2 uses in one building. So clearly, on its face, and as Ms. Roberti correctly found, that's what we're here for. Did Ms. Roberti, was she correct in her interpretation in looking at the statute? You don't have to go through all the machinations we just heard from the 3 attorneys, unless you find that there's a reason to look beyond the clear, plain meaning of the statute. The statute is very clear and plain with respect to the arguments that have been made tonight. As far as the convenience store, if you look at our papers, this argument is a new one. It's not being made in the arguments that were briefed before you. It's raised for the first time tonight. They didn't preserve it in their appeal because it's not at all mentioned. It's only being raised tonight with respect to the argument. There are also, again, more machinations. The convenience store. We all know common sense and the industry standard is as to what today's convenience stores are, both their size and the products you get in there. It's clearly not a grocery store. It's not Whole Foods. It's not a produce stand. It's not a butcher block. It's not a frozen food aisle in the sense that you go into all the offerings that 50,000 square foot grocery stores have. There's no confusion between a grocery store and a convenience store, and it's clearly permitted, and it's others in the town, including some of the competitors. I was also pleased that my colleagues made most of my arguments for me and educated you as to some of the issues with standing and with mootness. And they're relevant. The standing arguments are very relevant because you have to be an aggrieved party, and part of that aggrievement is that you've exhausted your administrative remedies. Many of them, the 3 out of the 5 here, were not part of the initial group that Mr. Stenger represented. So they didn't agree. They could have gone and made those arguments to the building department zoning determination, and they didn't. So they're not appropriately before you. Standing proximity alone is not sufficient in all cases. And in our papers, we've gone through that as case law as to why proximity alone. Just because you're next door, you still have to show that you have concrete injuries. And the planning board issued a negative declaration, found that there weren't the impacts that you've heard about tonight, this parade of horribles. They don't exist, nor is it really relevant for you to go through what they're trying to do, which is drag you back into the planning board process. And that's why we argue this interpretation is moot. They could have done a number of things which they didn't do. They could have gone to court to get a stay. They chose to file their interpretation at a late stage of the game. Clearly that interpretation is being funded by competition, who don't want competition, including one that's outside of the jurisdiction in the village of Fishkill and isn't appropriate, village of Wappingers Falls, excuse me, and isn't appropriate to establish standing. And what they're asking you to do is to really reverse the planning board's decision, which is why they filed an Article 78. That's appropriately before the court. What you've heard tonight is everything. Refer it back to the planning board. You can go back to the planning board. The planning board should have done this. That's not the way it works. It didn't work that way. They could have made other steps and measures, and they chose not to. And all they're asking you to do is reverse the planning board so you become a super board of appeal. With respect to the convenience store, I'm just going to ask Zidane if you can come up here and just talk to me a little bit about the industry standards with respect to convenience stores and how those have evolved. If you could just speak to the stand and identify yourself.
Please. Zidane Neshwat, Gasoline Petroleum. As far as convenience store, you're looking for on-demand items that you don't want to go to Route 9 or to a superstore to acquire. You know, aside from your snacks and your your household goods and whatnot, it's something within 2 to 3 miles from your place of business that you rely on this store to have as a neighborhood, as your neighborhood store. You know, you don't go there for value. You don't get coupons where you buy 36 packs of paper towels at a discount or anything like that. It's a place that if you ran out of milk, you run down the street to the convenience store, or if you ran out of kitty litter, which Mary Kay does not like in our gas stations, you run to the convenience store to get it. It's no different than what the competition, Ken's clients, sell at their convenience stores. You know, I understand that they don't want this gas station. They didn't want us to be 24 hours. We went to 18 hours. Now they don't want us to have all the items that they have in their convenience store, so now it's become an argument. And we're getting sucked back into something that we've already been through. And again, it's on-demand items that you don't anticipate that you need while you're at a grocery store, or you didn't realize that you're going to run out of while you're baking, which apparently Mary Kay does not like either. So you run to the gas station, you don't have to go to Route 9, and you pick those things up. And if you're driving to work, your belt snaps, you grab a belt. You don't have to go to Macy's. So we're not a department store, we're not a supermarket, and it's no different than Dunkin' Donuts selling their merchandise. They're not a department store either. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so to bring it back to where we started with the questions posed by the appellant is, can an apartment be built on top of a gas station? The answer to that is, as permitted under the code and as found by Ms. Roberti, and as detailed in our papers, the answer to that is yes. It's separate and apart from, it's a distinct dwelling unit. It can be done so here. And we've established with the plans, and Ms. Roberti has reasonably found, that it is a separate dwelling unit, separate and apart from the gas station use. Second question, whether a convenience store is allowed as an accessory use. That's clear in your zoning ordinance when it talks about gasoline filling station. It talks about a gas station can have a convenience store use. The mixed use component. There's also a retail component, and that's one of the other special permits that we obtained. So this project is conforming with zoning. Their request for an interpretation misses the mark, and we request that the board, upon consideration of the matter, uphold Mr. Roberti's determination. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to correct the statement that we did not raise the discussion of the convenience store, given the size of the proposed building and the definitions of what constitutes convenience goods. Those appear at page...
Let me interrupt you for just 1 second. I wanted to ask counsel, Mr. Wood, is the definition of a convenience store really relevant to what we're voting on?
Well, I think that'll be something you're going to have to ponder based on the information that's there. We'll take care of reading everything that's been submitted and reviewed. I think that the question I would have is what differentiates a convenience store from a grocery store? And that is more of, I think, an enforcement, because right now what was approved by the planning board is a blank box, which is delineated as a commercial store, but we don't know yet what it's going to be stocked with. So obviously you're trying to persuade the board that this store is going to be stocked the same way as all the other stores. But that may very well end up being an enforcement issue after it's operating.
And the discussion of the convenience goods starts on page 12 of 16 of the reply memorandum, second paragraph from the bottom.
It's to begin, just state your name again. Go ahead, come on up. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Good. We just want to establish for the record with the size of the store that 60 square feet is for a restroom, 125 square feet for utility rooms, 330 square feet for coolers, 340 square feet for kitchen, 40 square feet for the deli cooler, 250 square feet was actually lost to stairs to the upstairs apartment access, 40 square feet for an office, and then it's 2,400 square feet is the dedicated convenience store, checkout counter, and access aisles.
Thank you. Here. It's just for the record.
Zidane Nashwat. And this is no different than his client's convenience stores. And his client sued us in the village of Wappingers because we were competing with him as well for this similar product with 2 apartments upstairs, convenience store, and his client failed over there as well. It's no different than the competition. This is all competition. They're trying to limit the competition to their business.
Understood. Understood. I'm going to ask if there's anybody else in the audience that want to speak on behalf of this application. Is anybody here, anybody else here want to speak on behalf of this application? I'm sorry. Okay. And if there is not, then I am going to ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
So moved. Okay, I think that the next step, Mr. Wood, then would be to schedule for the next meeting, right? Which would be, I'm sorry.
May 24th.
Right, would put you folks on the agenda for the May 24th meeting. At which time? 26.
26 or 24?
24. 24, yeah. May 24th.
Oh, May.
We would ask that if anybody wants to submit any written comments, that they would do that by the 13th of May, and that would give the board, the town, enough time to submit those to the board for review.
And on the intent, I believe, would be that the board would have an executive session on that evening with council to discuss their thoughts, and that the matter would then come on a meeting in June for board
for decision.
So there's, Mr. Chairman, if I may, so the May meeting is a working meeting for you to consider the arguments with council.
That's correct.
Is there any need for parties to attend, or should we just come in June?
I wouldn't think so.
Yeah, just in June would be on the agenda for a vote.
Yes,
So we will not be here in May.
that's correct.
And we'll see you in June.
That's correct.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank everyone for your time. All right. So, no, we got to adjourn.
The decision will be on June 28th.
Make a motion to adjourn. So with no further business before the board this evening, then could I have a motion to adjourn?
I make
I'll make a sorry, go ahead, Sheila.
yeah, I make a motion to adjourn.
Second?
I'll second.
Motion. Mr. Leach?
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
So moved.